Good morning or evening, depending. It's midnight, and I'm broadcasting at midnight because I'm up and about and excited about what I want to explore with everyone. So you have reached Venus Unplugged. I am Llorraine Neithardt, and what we do here on Venus Unplugged is we're trying to dial up your inner compass of Venus. So it's an inquiry into the mystery and art of living through the archetype of Venus. And she represents beauty and love. And if you piss her off, war. She is both dark and light, and she is the principle of creation. So she's not just a pretty face. She's got some serious powers. And so we want to make her more conscious. I have a theory. I've been a mentor, a soul mentor, and psychic and Jungian-inspired soul person for many, many years now. And I see more and more that one of the greatest fears at the heart of humanity is beauty. They fear it. They fear Venus. And very often it shows up in our longing or in our sense of loss. We're longing for something or something we feel that we have lost. We don't know what it's about. And, we've got all sorts of theories around this, but very rarely do we realize I'm missing my sense of connection to Venus, to beauty, the principle of it. And that's why art making can be so painful. It's the longing, it's the remembrance, it's the pulling. And we also have a society that pushes her out into the regions and splits her off between her and Madonna and all those cultural events. But what we're going to be talking about now is the Mother Matrix, the Great Mother, as she is referred to in fairy tales. So in each epic that humanity is evolving in and towards, or de-evolving, depending on the epic, the Great Mother, she has a central position both in causing cultural disintegration and at the same time creating something new. And if you haven't noticed recently, it's like she seems to be working overtime. And she's the archetype which pretty much dominates modern psychology. But she's seldom consciously recognized or attended to as a super-personal force. Actually, on the contrary, people are mostly under her spell as a witness of the rampant materialism of our time and a clear manifestation of a destructive side. So you didn't know there was an archetype behind all that, or perhaps you did. So as a result, the archetypal mother in previous ages was an object of devotion. And if you look at prehistoric, you see these exquisite goddesses and made out of stone and clay. And what's interesting, there are no findings of male deities. So she obviously was an important figure in the world of humanity. Right? So there was this, in the previous ages, there was an object of devotion, and therefore she was a source of this psychic vitality. And she has become the cause of life-destroying tendencies. And, we have science, which is highly important, but is chiefly used to exploit nature. So we want to start to look at an attitude of service towards the Great Mother, recognizing her as a power superior to human beings is very rare. Although people are becoming more and more conscious of Gaia and that principle that all is connected, and there's real effort, so much more than ever before, but still not enough. And it needs to be deep within ourselves, not just the love of nature, but also as the guiding principle in the depth of our psyche. She's definitely involved in everything, whether you're aware of it or not. So the nature mother turns on those who are not aware of their limitations. She doesn't go for that, particularly the limitations of intellect with which one so often identifies. In such a state of mind, one uses nature irresponsibly or for purely selfish reasons. So we need to understand Mother Nature, or Earth's Mother, or Mother Matrix. She wreaks vengeance. Just look at some of her storms, or she stops everything. You can do all the praying you want and have all the intellect that you want and all the science you want. I can protect us to a degree, but when she rips it, man, she rules. So just a taste of the center of a storm is enough to have us understand her power. So in stories or in fairy tales, the Great Mother appears as the ruler of 3 spheres, also in dreams, all right? She's in the underworld, and she has the power of death. On earth, she's the goddess of fertility, and in the heavens, she illuminates. So you're not getting out of Dodge without the Mother Matrix. She also represents 3 aspects of time: the past as the old woman, the present as the middle-aged woman, and the future as the young girl. And as the earth goddess, she is mediator between her heavenly and her infernal traits. As the present, she links the past with the future. As a totality, she is the Eros principle. And Eros and Venus are sidekicks. And she is inspired nature. So she has her vengeance, but she is also inspired. So, but what's missing from this trinity, is the masculine divine spirit, the Logos. And without discrimination of the Logos, the feminine archetype cannot be brought into consciousness. So there comes that secret 4, which is so powerful in alchemy. But it also represents the throne of Isis, the cube. So we need that. This is part of what the patriarchal development has been about. But that's worn out, and we're moving into another evolutionary link. So the thousands of years of evolution of the masculine spirit have also served the purpose of consciousness of the feminine principle, which can only be accepted as an equal partner by a mature spirit. So that's what that looks like. And today there's really not a choice between alternatives, either the male or the female principle, but of knowing that spirit, too, is born of the life of nature, and that nature needs spiritual enlightenment in order to make its sense clear. And now for an individual, and in the language of the Jungian psychology, this means a man needs to develop his anima and a woman her animus. Anima is the animating archetype within the male. Animus is the male principle of spirit within the woman. So a man's spiritual attitude will become sterile if he's not capable of letting in nature or irrational life. And for a man to develop his anima really means linking himself with nature, which is the same as a relationship with the unconscious. While in a woman's life, it becomes barren if she's unable to find spiritual sense in it. In the depths of her being, she is nature. Hell hath no fury, right? There we have it, as nature. So, but without a developed animus, she has no conscious relationship with the true base of her existence. So the archetype of the feminine, the female divinity, has been completely submerged. And we're trying to bring her up there. And we want her dark and cathartic characters that have been suppressed. When people ask, well, is it good or is it bad? Well, it's, it could be her light, it could be her darkness. It's still her. It's still, or any of us. We favor one, the other one's going to get stronger. That's why we want to integrate the opposites. So, or if we look at it in terms of the Christian mysteries, the birth of the Savior, but they couldn't carry that one out because there could be no Savior, ever born without a divine mother. So the feminine principle must be involved if a culture is to be profoundly reconstituted. No comprehensive renewal is possible without it. So she's the deal, right? And since the archetype is an immortal part of the psyche, an archetype, and particularly what we're talking about, the mother archetype, and that doesn't mean one's personal mother, that is the archetypal mother. So this archetype is an immortal part of psyche, and it keeps reappearing even if it is neglected by institutional religions or just plain old ignorance. So it produces the imagination in folk tales and in novels, and it's in the symbols of alchemy, as well as in dreams and fantasies. The supra-personal female figure keeps reappearing in her unique nature. These are all individual experiences that are the origin of the collective imagination. So the feminine principle, for so long forced below the horizon of consciousness, is reemerging in a more developed form than before. So that's part of why so much is happening in the outer world. She's returning. She's coming up. And she's always been there. We can't take a breath without her. But we're becoming more conscious. And it's also why, the women are waking up, and they've always been waking up, but really like developing their animus, their masculine principles. Not what a society says, but what is unique of their animus. They're stepping more into politics. They're taking that form. So it's all being woken up as never before. So this is one of the great signs. So she's in there too. Women have always been in touch with themselves, but there's a whole new happening here. And men are really they've always been there. I think that's one of the greatest secrets as women that we don't understand is, not to screwball men, but really men, they really, really love women, and they really want to make them happy, but so often we don't give the hints properly, or we get, or they don't really know, but they do try. You see, even little boys, they're going to bring you a dirty rock or a dead frog, or your cat will bring you a dead bird. You scream, but it's love. Well, the same thing happens. We have to help one another. So, it's very important in what is happening now. Nobody's against anybody, but we are beginning to understand how important this mother matrix is in all of us, and so that we find the beauty. So, in a sense, of course, women have always been in touch with themselves, but more, it's like new wine needs new skins. So the archetype has always required a new understanding in tune with the times. So our mother matrix is awakening in tune with the times. She is the times. It's not that she is becoming something. She is forever and eternally an isness. but we're refining her isness to develop the culture and hopefully to bring the culture further. Because God knows it feels like it's a slippy, slidery slope right now, but I don't really believe that's the true power. I think just Mother Matrix is kicking in. So women need to understand that their true natures are new and not identify themselves with the male side, but to come into a new understanding their female character with the help of a little masculinity. So there are a few women nowadays that do not identify with the negative animus when it is constellated. Because when it's constellated, this has a destructive effect that you cannot believe. Well, we all know. You'll walk away and think, what and why did I just say that or do that, or what is it about? So the negative animus is, all that opinionated shit, which doesn't really hold anything. I have it on the highest authority. It's hearsay. It's gossip. It's tweet. Tweet so much could trigger the negative animus or anima carrying on all over the place. So we are, if we can understand, like, oh, man, I just really came from that place. Or, shit, I really let my shadow loose. And now sometimes we have to consciously allow. You say shadow's got to do some walking. So you can do it in active imagination, or you can fantasize about the brilliant revenge theory you'd like to work out and let it live, write it, dance it, play around with it, and hopefully give it enough libido that it doesn't have to slip out in the middle of an inconvenient truth, right? So that's part of how we work with it. We don't deny it. We let it live. But hopefully we give it some containment, some healthy boundaries. So that's part of what Jung was talking about in terms of, individuation or the tension of the opposites. Being able to take the opposite parts in any particular person or life experience and integrate them. So with Jung, who felt he was working scientifically, his method, both in clarity of his thought and in use of factual data. So the consequences was that he drew from were the discoveries of depth psychology in general. But there's a need for science and others, such as historians, to know the conditions of their own psyche. For that, they must develop the function which can mediate between their conscious mind and their unconscious. This means consciousness of the psychological figures of the anima in a man and the animus in a woman, which more often than not operate unconsciously. So let's say with a scientist, if he's not aware of his anima, his feminine principle, that he doesn't get the full story. So if he learns to pay attention to his unconscious and to adopt kind of a receptive, listening posture towards the voice of nature, he'll have a dream, kind of like Einstein. His theory of relativity was kind of a waking dream. So he saw it. So with the scientist, let's say what dreams tell him is truly natural. He had the great goddesses at work. She often knows more than he does. And she has great wisdom to offer with astonishing beauty. Astonishing beauty. So a woman, is born with this plentitude. I mean, they're born with it. But in her case, her inner partner, the animus, must give her the chance to process and give form to all she has, so that the female nature she takes in from does not simply reclaim her values. If she has a relationship with the unconscious, a woman is brought in touch with the supernatural figure, who is her own true nature. It's It's her own true nature. The Adams is her own true nature. However, which she has long forgotten. So thousands of years of cultural evolution have forced her to give up her relationship with this principle. Now, we shan't have that anymore, shall we? Nope, nope, nope. We have to really, it's imperative. It's the most important work to be done for those who have chosen to do it. Not everybody's chosen to do it. So, the whole kind of story of being cast out of the paradise of the merely natural to develop our consciousness. But Mother Nature is always there. You see, the feminine archetype is the principle of nature. Got it? The feminine archetype is the principle of nature. And that's how we regenerate ourselves. So this principle, it looms large in times of cultural change. So obviously, we are going to have some serious episodes of Mother Nature in the next, let's say, decade. Let's be kind and stretch it out. Because no culture can be regenerated without the maternal matrix, any more than any individual can. So there's this kind of like deep, it's not a kind of, it is a deep split, whether in an individual or a whole culture. And it cannot be bridged without a descent into the collective unconscious, in which the original unity is still present. So the unity is present in the collective unconscious. So those journeys we have to make are not only for ourselves and our own development and evolution, it's for the culture. So we hopefully give our time and our love and our money to the evolutionist culture, but we also have to give our soul awakening. So in the quiet of your own being, you're part of this great shift that is always happening. I don't think this is like a special time for a great shift. Anytime. I mean, she's never still. I mean, she's always working. People may be repressing and not paying attention, but the phenomenon of the spirit is met in its original form. It's Mother Nature. And that's the new spirit. So the archetype of nature, or nature and the mother, is the principle behind the phenomenon we experience both externally and in ourselves, our bodies and our unconscious minds, our natural phenomenon. So in both we can observe natural processes of ego consciousness, and the ego consciousness does not experience it. It's going on. I mean, if the ego had to be aware of what the body was doing, we wouldn't get past the first breath. So for that reason, the process of becoming conscious can only start for us with experiences connected with the body, which often knows more than the mind. I mean, I know that personally. I mean, 30 years ago when I started this tour of duty in the underworld, consciousness literally started with a pain in the ass. I had a sciatic nerve attack that was brutal. It was crippling. I couldn't walk. I went to the doctors and the witch doctors and the rich doctors and everything, and I couldn't get healed. And somebody mentioned chiropractic. And at the time, I've always lived in New York. I was living in what they call the Silk Stocking District over on the east side, and someone said, "Oh, there's this chiropractor," and I couldn't even, what's a chiropractor? But I was in such pain, they could have said there was a voodoo doctor, I would have gone, okay? And I went to the west side, the forbidden west side, which of course I adored, and went to this chiropractor, and he adjusted me, and within that 30-second of that adjustment, I must have had like some kind of, which I didn't understand at the time. It took another 10 years for me to figure it out, that I had this total Kundalini experience and like everything broke loose. And needless to say, Mother Goddess, who was biting on my ass because I wouldn't wake up, got released. And suddenly I started to understand some things. And so it's funny how these things happen. So within our pains and within our suffering, have a discussion with Mother Nature. What is she trying to say here? What does she need from you? I mean, obviously she needed me to wake up. And that's how that one happened, right? So with this understanding of this part, that this phenomenon of spirit and its demands. It's only when spirituality has become barren in lifeless that humanity longs to be back with nature in the hope that a new spirit and a new light with which to transcend the state of mere naturalness would manifest. We long for it, and there is a great longing in today's world, and yet we are frightened of it too. For we do not know if we will meet like a helpful fairy on the way through the forest, or an evil witch that will poison us and turn us into a beast. And also we feel that way sometimes when we go into the depths of the unconscious or trying to understand dreams. But when we start to become more conscious and we begin to face this helplessness within ourselves, we begin to understand. Look at the increase in astrology. I mean, it's epic what's happening. People are starting to understand that there is a language in the stars and the moon and forces. Okay, and the situation is similar in psyche, because the light of consciousness is so bright compared with nature's light in the psyche that one can hardly make it out. And this is why we have fairy tales, because they're great epic etiquette and journeys to seek the lights of nature to obtain and help advise us. So I've just got my 90-second ending here. Okay. So in the realm of dreams, of course, is Mother Nature. She is Mother Nature. So it's the continual change that's Mother Nature herself. But as long as a person is unconscious, one also remains pure nature as far as one's psyche is concerned. Thus subject to constant change of death, rebirth, and development. Nature is eternal change. So if a person's real nature makes itself felt indirectly by a neurotic symptom, my neurotic symptom of, a sciatic attack, there is still, I had to find this way. I didn't understand it. There's nothing like 20/20, 10 years later hindsight. But I'm glad that I became aware of it rather than not. So often the hero or the heroine in fairy tales understands the language of water or of animals. Same thing happens in the language of nature. That's her language. So we are left with letting our inner nature turn us to either like a dumb animal whose sensual experience no longer comprehend, or else to understand the language of animals and its instincts, which is spoken to us in dreams. And we can interpret this language, and we can grasp some of what Uncle Carl Jung termed the absolute knowledge of the unconscious. Contacted with it will increase the scope of our excessively narrow and one-sided consciousness. So don't forget to send a Mother's Day card to Mother Matrix. Okay, boys and girls, happy trails. Talk to you next week. Bye-bye.